Hello, listeners. If you've enjoyed these narrations, please click on that like and subscribe button. I'm never walking in the forest again. As I took my first steps through the entrance of the nature trail, I was convinced this was exactly the escape I needed to decompress. The moist soil sunk beneath my boots, flowers bloomed, the leaves on the trees shook and hummed gently in the summer breeze as birds sang. I felt like I'd walked into the Garden of Eden, lost in thought and devoured by the beauty radiating itself through all my senses. I'd never heard the footsteps approaching behind me. "Hey there," a woman chipper's voice plucked me out of my paradise. Hey, happy trailing?" I asked politely, despite my annoyance at the disruption. "Definitely. I came here a lot when I need a break. How about you?" The girl lingered slightly behind, tucking her dirty blonde hair behind her ear. "First time, actually, but I brought reinforcements," I said, gesturing to the map in my hand. "Well, I know there are better areas from when they first built the trails. They're not as well maintained, but they're easy enough to follow. They won't be on your map. I'm taking one up the river. Some people say it's dirty, but I like to dip my toes in it." We were walking side by side now, our boots smacking the dirt trail in rhythm. I looked at her closely for the first time. We looked close enough to the same age, maybe her being a year or two younger. We were sporting identical hiking boots. In another life, we might actually have been friends. As if sensing my thoughts, the girl looked towards me and smiled. "I'm Claudia, by the way. Care for a walking buddy? The forest is beautiful, but, sometimes it feels lonely. I can show you the river." I hesitated and nearly declined. I had come out here to escape, not to be social, but she seemed nice, and the river view did sound amazing. "I'm Avery, and I'm in. Lead the way." After a few minutes, Claudia gestured to a thin trail barely visible through the overgrown vegetation. I stood at the small opening, thinking about the critters living there, wondering if they bite. So much for easy to follow. As the trail widened a few yards in, my worries fell. It was actually beautiful. The sun glistened as it danced through the leaves. Claudia put her arms out for me to stop and pointed. In the distance, a fawn lingered near its mother. In this moment, I was so glad I had met her. As we trekked on, the foliage became more dense, and only small streams of light flickered through. A light, unpleasant odor wafted on the breeze. It seemed familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. Mold growing on stagnant water was my best guess. A gentle mist twinkled in the rays of light between the leaves. As I followed Claudia in silence, I wondered just how well she knew the trails. She hadn't hesitated, but the mist was flirting with fog by the minute. Claudia kept moving forward, as if pulled by an invisible string. Out of the corner of my eye, something moved on the edges of the fog to my left. My heart picked up speed. I closed the gap that had gradually formed between us. I think something's out here," I whispered. Claudia didn't slow down, but she turned back towards me and giggled. "Of course there's something out here. There's a lot of things out here. We're in the forest." Claudia must have seen the fear on my face, though, as an afterthought asked, "Was it big, though?" "I'm not entirely sure," I admitted nervously. "I only saw it for a second. It disappeared behind a tree. It was pretty far out, but I think it's moving in the same direction we are." Claudia kept her pace, but she agreed she'd keep an eye out. For the last 20 minutes, she kept her eyes firmly on the trail, so somehow I doubted that. I looked up over her shoulder and finally realized what she'd been so fixated on. There was something large up ahead peeking through the fog. A cabin? "Oh man, this is amazing. My dad told me about these during tourist season. The park rangers live out here," Claudia exclaimed. I watched the fog drop into the hole in the roof of the cabin. "It doesn't look like anyone lived here in a long time," I remarked. I'd only known Claudia from the trail, and yet I knew she was going to suggest we go in and explore. She was the adventurer to my play it safe. On second thought, maybe we couldn't have been friends in another life. Claudia started to speak, but I couldn't hear her over the throbbing of my heartbeat in my ears. Closer than before, the thing from earlier stood still ahead of the cabin. It was watching us. The fog obscured my vision, but I could see it was wearing something dark that fluttered in the wind. "Let's go inside," I interrupted her. Her eyes opened wide as I stormed past her. The door groaned its protest as I threw it open and flew inside. "That thing from earlier followed us here, Claudia. It was watching us. We need to figure a way out, and it's ahead of the cabin. I think we can go back the way we came. Can you see the trail well enough to run?" Claudia stood staring at me, cheeks flustering. I've never been to this cabin before. I lost the trail a little while back. I figured we could regroup here and make a plan. Are you sure there was something out there?" For a moment, I was dumbstruck. She had lost the trail? We were screwed. Finally, I choked out. "I'm positive. It was some freak in a dark glowing groan or something. How did you lose the trail? I thought you said we came here all the time." I hissed, fear slithering its way from my stomach and trickling into my throat. I swallowed hard. "I mean, yeah, but not in the fog. I was hoping we beat it and be able to watch it float across the river. It's gorgeous, like the mist of Avalon." Claudia looked uncomfortable. I knew she didn't lead us off trail intentionally, but it didn't feel that way, especially with some freak following us, slowly moving closer. "Let's look around and see if there's anything we can use to defend ourselves. Then we need to try to get out of here." I could hear the frustration in my tone. I never should have followed a stranger into the forest. How could I be so stupid? I headed left towards the kitchen as Claudia made her way towards the back rooms. I opened several drawers and cabinets to find nothing but spiders and dust. Defeated, I headed to meet up with Claudia, hoping she had more luck. As I entered, the first thing that hit me was the putrid smell. Claudia was bent over the bed in the corner of the room, softly crying. On top of a bare, stained mattress was a severely decomposing body. Dirty blonde hair clumped around the particularly exposed skull. As the body was turned to liquid, the red and white plaid shirt was turned to a nasty brownish along the chest. It could have been completely undefinable, if not for the clothing. Claudia was staring down at her own red and white plaid shirt, pulling on it, willing it not to be there. Both Claudia and the body on the bed both adored the same denim shorts, a small rip along the right hem. The arms of the body hung limply, cuffed to the bed. Both feet were bound. I slowly stepped back as Claudia whispered over and over, "Oh no, oh no, oh no." It became a mantra. As if I reached out for her, Claudia finally looked up. I yelped and jerked my hand back. Claudia's face now mirrored the body on the bed. The dirty blonde hair she pushed behind her ear earlier, now dirty, clumped, and missing in patches. Her eyes, long since disintegrated, leaked a gelatinous substance from the empty sockets. A few patches of skin left on her face hung like dry snake skin. "I'm sorry, Avery. I just can't handle this," she garbled with her stumped tongue and a mouth with no lips to help enunciate. She ran out of the cabin door and back into the forest. Shock paralyzed me, and insanity threatened to leave me in a fetal position in the corner, waiting for someone to rescue me. But deep down I knew no one would come. That's why Claudia's body was still lying here, left to rot. I couldn't stay here. but leaving meant facing the follower, the thing lingering in the woods. It was possibly that person who had killed Claudia, and the follower who one and the same, but somehow, I didn't think so. I did the only thing I could. I peeked my head out the front door to make sure no one was waiting for me outside, and I headed back out into the forest. I had two options: continue on the direction Claudia had been leading me, or attempt to find the thin trail in the fog Claudia had somehow managed to lose and head back to the main trail. Upon inspecting, the trail seemed easier to follow, heading in the direction we had originally been moving, so onward it was. The further I went on, the denser the fog. The foul smell from earlier slid down my nostrils and made my lungs ache. Through the corner of my eyes, the follower inched closer. I kept my eyes forward to keep my sanity. I stopped briefly to catch my breath. I had been running nearly for close to 10 minutes now. I was terrified to stop, but the buildup of lactic acid in my muscles begged to differ. As my breath quieted, I heard running water. The river. Just like Claudia had said, I had been close to the original trails. I pulled out my map to try to make a guess at where I could possibly be and how to get the hell out of here. While I couldn't be sure of my exact location, I could see where the main trail met up with the river. I could be anywhere from a few feet to a few miles. The fog was so dense I couldn't see more than 2 feet from my nose. My hope was to make time. I was near the trail. I'd been able to see it. I inched forward slowly, carefully. Up ahead, something dark moved from higher up in the tree and floated down into the breeze. It fluttered like a downed large bird, but as it neared, I realized in horror what was coming. I tried to scurry back, tripping over a rock on my trail. My tailbone screamed painfully as it hit the hard ground below. I scooted frantically away, making no real progress. The follower continued its descent. It hovered just above the ground, and although its face was shrouded by the same black fabric, I could feel its eyes bore through me. My body shook as it looked down on me, waiting. Slowly, it extended its arm towards me. The sleeve pushed back to reveal what I believed to be a woman's hand. The nails were long, and the skin carried the grayish hue of rot. As the hand uncurled itself, I struggled to tear my eyes from the golden sigils that stared just underneath the fingernail and continued up past the sleeves. It took me a moment to realize it was offering to help me up. I started to extend my hand before hearing Claudia whisper, "She'll help you up, but she'll take you. We can stay in the forest together. We can be friends." Any part of me that questioned my sanity was squashed by Claudia's hot breath leaving condensation against my neck. "I've been so lonely out here, Avery. I've been so lonely for so long." Suddenly, I recognized the smell carried by the fog. Once when I was younger, a mouse died behind one of the walls in the kitchen. In the summer, the smell became unbearable. My mother begged my father to cut the wall open to pull the mouse from its poorly sealed coffin, but my father refused. We ate dinner outside to avoid killing our appetites. Eventually the smell faded and things returned to normal, but I'll never completely forget that smell. The fog and my childhood home both smelled of death. The follower was still waiting, with her hand extended for my response. I crawled forward, slowly. The follower remained still. I sprang to my feet and ran back to the way I came. I tripped twice, skinning my knee, but I didn't stop. After a few minutes, I ventured to look behind me. The follower wasn't there. I slowed to a walk, desperately looking for a trail. The fog was slowly pulling back. After nearly 10 minutes of panic, I'd found the small trail Claudia and I started on. To both my relief and dismay, I didn't pass the cabin again. Just as panic threatened to take hold, the fog cleared enough to reveal the main trail just up ahead. I broke out into a sprint. As soon as I hit the trail entrance, I called the police. I knew if I told them the whole story about Claudia, they'd never believe me, but there was plenty I could tell. A park ranger who introduced himself as Park Ranger Thompson arrived first. I told him I'd began at the main trail, but noticed a small side trail and decided to take it. He frowned at this but continued to listen. I told him about how at some point I'd lost the trail but continued on. I told him about the rundown cabin and the body chained to the bed. He stopped me there. "You're telling me that there in the woods, there's a cabin with a girl's body chained up and you didn't call the police then?" I left my phone in the car. I came out here to get a break from the real world. That's why I didn't bring it with me. "Well, sir, we haven't had a hiker go missing here in at least 3 years, and we've been out thoroughly here searching. I've never come across a rundown cabin," he responded flatly. She had blonde, dirty hair, and she was wearing a white undershirt and a red and white plaid flannel. We had matching boots. My voice trailed off, my throat burning with the effort of continuing sobs. The park ranger tensed. "If this is some kind of joke, you need to leave right now." Anger waved in his voice. "Why would I joke about this? What's wrong with you? She needs help." I felt insane. How could he not understand? None of this made sense. "My daughter went missing in these woods 3 years ago. She was last seen in a white undershirt, red and white plaid flannel, and a brown hiking boots." His voice cracked. "You said she's in a cabin." I stopped myself quickly, realizing my mistake. I heard park rangers stay in them during tourist seasons, but no one had lived there for a long time. There's no way. I tried my best to lead Ranger Thompson back to the side trail, back to his daughter. But without Claudia leading me, I couldn't find the trail. I swore it was there, and the hope for closure that flashed before his eyes let me know he believed me. "I'll pull the map for the original trails. Maybe one of them have the cabin on it. If you want to leave your number, I'll call you when I find it." On the drive home, I had too much time to think. I didn't think Claudia knew she was dead when she first walked up beside me. I don't think she knew she was leading me to her body either. I think she herself was pulled by whatever it was that allows our souls to call a body home. And I don't think the follower was a monster anymore. I think she was death, offering me an easy way out. I wonder if Ranger Thompson will call me after he finds Claudia, or if the follower will make him wait for him in the cabin, offering him an easy way out. I wonder if Claudia will whisper in his ear about how lonely she's been. I wonder if her hot breath against the back of his neck will convince him to stay. Regardless, I'm staying off the trails.